Hey, Daryl here in the JCR garage, and today I'm going to show you how to install our shield carrier for the TJ and LJ Wranglers. This thing goes on really easy, and the best part about it is it swings with the tailgate, so you don't have to worry about a separate latch of any kind. Let's get started. So you're going to want to start by installing your bumper. And if your bumper's been installed for a while, you probably have a plastic cap with maybe some silicone on it right here to protect this inner surface. If you didn't do that or didn't put enough silicone on it, when you pull that cap off, you might get a surprise and you might have some surface rust in there. So you're going to have to clean out that surface rust before you insert this spindle. Now this is a brand new bumper install and a perfect surface in there so we don't have any issues. And to keep it that way, I'm going to take a little bit of this gray anti-seize and I'm just going to apply it on the surface of this spindle. And that way, if we ever take this apart or take it off, if we don't want to run the tire carrier anymore or switch to a different tire carrier, we're really going to thank ourselves for doing this part later. So once you get some anti-seize on there, this spindle is just going to slide right into this bore and pop it right down just like that. This might be a little difficult to see, but what we have right here is an open kind of a sleeve right here that the spindle goes into, and the spindle has a threaded bore on the bottom of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of anti-seize on this bolt because, you know, like I said, it's nice to take it apart again one day, and we don't have to worry about Loctite on this just because there's not a lot of rotation and a lot of vibration that's going to be an issue on this. So I'm just going to use anti-seize. We're going to take this washer right here and slide it right on the bottom of that sleeve, and then up there's an access hole right here where we can slide this 3/4 inch bolt up into it. And then if you have a relatively thin walled 1 1/8 socket, this is just a standard Craftsman, you should be able to fit that guy right up in there just like that, and just go ahead and tighten that up. There's a chance you may have to hold on to this spindle while you're tightening. If you do, just remember, if you hold on to it with a wrench or anything like that, make sure you hold on to it in a spot that isn't a bearing surface. Right in the middle of a spindle, there's a little bit of a recess or like a taper maybe, and you could grab that with a pair of vice grips or whatever if you had to, but usually just the friction of it being in there should hold it. So we're gonna tighten this up nice and tight, and that's all there is. Next, if you haven't already, you're going to want to remove the factory tailgate tire carrier. It's like 4 or 6 bolts, it comes right off. And then remove any of the factory rubber bump stops. Those are Torx. I didn't have any on this vehicle, but I believe they're T30, but don't quote me on it. You know how Jeep loves their Torx. What we're going to do now is we're going to install this tailgate plate. And this just goes on with the 5/16 button head bolt provided. There's 4 of them and they use a 3/16 hex wrench. Now there won't be any adjustment necessary so much with this plate, so once you get all of the bolts loosely installed, you can go ahead and tighten them down with that 3/16 hex. And the next step, we're going to loosely install this Delrin block. It just slides right into the tailgate plate here, and then it gets 2, looks like 3/8 bolts through it. And then, like I said, this is going to be adjusted later, so we're just going to install it really loose for right now. Now we send really high quality Timken roller bearings with this kit, but they come ungreased. So the next step is going to be to grease these guys. And there's a trick to doing that without a bearing grease packer. You can do it just with a pair of gloves. Grab some wheel bearing grease, really any kind, it does not matter. This does not see any high speed use at all, obviously. And what you're going to want to do is just grab a bit of grease in your palm, just like that. And take this bearing in your other hand, and you want to quick slap it and drag it right through the corner of that wad of grease in your hands. And what you're looking for is to press the grease up through the roller bearings, and you'll start to see it pop up through the other side. So you just want to rotate it around in your hand while you do that, just waiting for that grease to kind of pop up through the roller bearings on the top. You're actually just like forcing the grease up through the bearing with the pressure of slapping it against that palm. And then once that's done, you can wipe off the excess grease. Like I said, you don't need a lot of grease in this guy. And you know, if you want your hands to be slippery for the rest of the day, you can do this without gloves, but gloves are a nice addition to the process. That's all it takes. So the next thing you want to do is you want to check and make sure that the races are installed in this. They should come from us installed, and then make sure there's no powder coat on the surfaces. And then go ahead and take your bearings that you just greased and throw one in the bottom. This is the bottom side of the tire carrier. And the next thing you're gonna wanna do is take this seal, and it's always a good idea to wipe a little grease on the inside lip of the seal, and I probably could have done that when I had gloves on, but you know, I'm not great at order of operations, so dirty hands. So anyways, we're gonna wipe just a little bit of grease on the inside seal surface of this seal, and then there's a little dust boot right there, and that dust boot is gonna point out. And you can hammer this in with a tiny little brass punch. I find that I think this is a Dana 60 hub socket. Kind of fits pretty well, and then just go ahead and just hammer that seal down evenly until it is resting against the bearing all even. So just kind of hit it evenly on all sides until it is seated down right against the bearing. All right, so the next thing you're gonna wanna do is flip this tire carrier over to right side up. Make sure your race, your bearing, and your seal is in there, and then we're gonna slide it over the spindle that we installed earlier. You're gonna kinda wanna be a little careful of your tail light, kinda move it in at an angle, and then slide that seal right over, the seal and bearing rather, right over that spindle, all the way to the bottom. Take the other bearing that's greased and pop that guy on top and press it down. Washer. Then you want to take this nut that we give you right here and thread that on top of the spindle. And you can snug this up with a 1.5 inch socket. And I usually get these pretty snug just because I like a little bit of preload on those bearings. After that spindle's all tight, you can take this cap that we give you, and the first thing I want you to do is make sure that there's an O-ring on here. There's a little O-ring and that seals everything up. And then, this is really, really important, I want you to take some of that anti-seize you used earlier and put it on the threads of this cap. And the reason that is because we have two dissimilar metals here. We have aluminum and we have steel, and we want to put an anti-seize barrier between those two things, or else they will fuse together, and that will be a bad day. So make sure you use some anti-seize here. After you get some anti-seize on here, like I said, don't skip that step. Go ahead and thread it in by hand. And it should go pretty far down by hand. It might not go all the way down, but once you get it pretty close, you can take this handy wrench here that we provide you, and you can go ahead and tighten it up the rest of the way. And you don't need to tighten this up Herculean or anything like that. You basically just want to put a little pressure on that O-ring so it seals everything up nice. So the next step is to take Corey's spare tire, which looked like maybe it came out of a junkyard or a swamp somewhere. It's really nasty, but I mean, it suits Corey's Jeep just fine. And we're gonna take some measurements on it. The first measurement we're gonna take is we want a radius measurement, if you will. So we're just gonna kind of estimate this. We don't have to be super accurate. So I'm gonna take this straight edge right in the center cap there, and we're gonna say right about 16 inches or so on the radius, which is right about what a 33-inch tire, a mud terrain or a mall terrain or an all-terrain is gonna measure. So at the minimum, we're gonna go 16 inches from the bumper, but I like to mount them just a little bit higher for clearance. So I'm gonna go, it looks like 3 holes down is pretty good, yeah. So I'm gonna mount this guy 3 holes down. So we give you some short little 1/2 inch bolts here with some washers, and then on the back, some 1/2 inch flange nuts. So like I said before, we're gonna count down 3 holes. We're gonna push this guy through there, and we are gonna install a flange nut, and I'm gonna do that for the 4 other holes here on this tire mount. Now once you get all of these installed, you can go ahead and tighten these down to final torque. There's really no reason you really have to adjust this, unless once you close the gate with a tire on it that you think the tire's a little too low, but I'll let Corey deal with all that. So the next step, I think, would be to get a tetanus shot so that I can handle Corey's ridiculously disgusting wheel and tire again. And then after that tetanus shot, we're gonna grab a straight edge, and we're just gonna make sure that it covers the highest portion of the sidewall bulge of the tire. And then we're just gonna get a back spacing measurement, but we're adding the thickness of the tire bulge. And if we look down, we're right about, just about 6 inches or so. I'm gonna go 5 7/8, so we just have kind of a little bit of a squeeze on that tire bulge. Then I'm just gonna keep that 5 7/8 measurement in mind, and I'm gonna loosely install this tire plate. And then what this gets is carriage bolts. They're 1/2 inch carriage bolts, and there's a square hole laser cut here on the sides, and then 1/2 inch flange nuts on the inside. So we're just gonna loosely install these at first, just like that. And then I'm gonna get my 3/4 inch wrench hand. And what we're looking for is that 5 7/8-ish measurement. And we're gonna measure from the face of the tire carrier, not the tire carrier mount, but the face of the tire carrier, right to the face of the tire mount itself. And we're looking for 5 7/8-ish on each side, on the top, and on the bottom, which is 5 7/8 all around. And then what we can do is snug that little side one up just to hold it right there. And then tighten this top one right here. Tighten that guy all the way down first. And then measure one more time just to make sure that you're at that 5 7/8 all the way around. And then go ahead and tighten the side bolts down nice and snug. I don't have a torque setting on any of this, but really tight would be good, because you do not want to see your tire bouncing down the highway behind you. I think they call that a bad day. So you're gonna take this heim that we supply you, and I know I sound like a broken record here, but go ahead and take it all the way apart and add some anti-seize onto these threads. This is an aluminum heim, fully aluminum, and it is anodized, but just for a little bit of extra protection, put some anti-seize on there. That way, if you ever have to adjust it later on, you're gonna thank yourself for that. Now, I can't tell you exactly what length this heim is gonna end up being, because it really depends on your specific Jeep, where your tub is mounted on your frame, and how you installed the bumper. But I will tell you that you know, this will get you pretty close. Figure, what is that, 3/8 of an inch or so of threads showing with the jam nut already backed up against this heim right here. So we're gonna take this heim, and then we supply you with these misalignment washers. So a misalignment washer on top and a misalignment washer on the bottom there. And then we'll go ahead and slide this into the tabs on the tailgate plate. And get everything aligned there, and then take this 1/2 inch flange nut and go ahead and just loosely install it. Like I said, we're probably gonna take it back apart to adjust it. And then we're gonna do the same thing on the other side, 2 misalignment washers, a 1/2 inch bolt, a washer, and a flange nut. But if you do it like this, there's not really much room to get your hands in there. So what you can do is you can open your tailgate, and it'll give you a little, oh. I guess Corey found this whole Jeep at the bottom of a swamp. I'm the Crypt Keeper! That's super annoying. Anyways, go ahead and open this to about, I don't know, what is it, 60 degrees? And that'll flatten this link out a lot, and then it'll give you a lot more room for your hands. So just as before, we're gonna put a misalignment washer on the top, a misalignment washer on the bottom. We're gonna slide everything into the tab on the tire carrier portion this side, and then just go ahead and loosely install that flange nut. So now's the part of the show where we adjust this heim joint, and what we're looking for is to close the tire carrier and have just a little bit of resistance on closing. And then when we grab this, see, I can grab this and I can kind of move it around a little bit. That's not enough preload. So we're gonna open it back up again. Ready? Oh, it's quiet this time. Huh. Crypt Keeper must be gone. Anyways, like I said, I want a little bit more preload. So what I'm gonna do is drop that misalignment washer and then take this heim joint and I'm gonna thread it in, let's say maybe 2.5 turns. So we're gonna go 1/2, 1, 1/2, 2, and 1/2. I'm gonna pick up this misalignment washer I dropped, excuse me. And we're gonna reassemble it just like before. Then we're gonna close it and see how close we are. That is pretty good. So what you'll see is when I grab this latch right here, there's just a little bit of preload and it opens it up. And that's what I want. I don't want a ton of stress in the tailgate, but I also want to make sure that this guy is tight against the tailgate so it doesn't rattle or anything like that. Now you might find that this loosens up later on after a bunch of driving or whatnot. All you have to do is do what I just showed you, tighten that heim up a little bit. After one more adjustment, it should last quite a long time at that adjustment. So now what we're gonna do that is good and all adjusted, we're gonna open it up and we're gonna tighten the heim bolts and we're gonna tighten the heim jam nut. Now we leave a little bit of room in these tabs for this heim joint to go in with those misalignment spacers, or it can be a real bear. So you want to make sure that you tighten these bolts enough that it pinches these tabs down tight against the heim joints. So when you grab this guy, you don't have any noticeable clinking or clanking in there. All right, so now we've got to tighten up that Delrin cradle here, Delrin spacer here that is on the tailgate plate. And you could kind of tighten it with it open and then check to make sure it's in the right position, but I have a little trick. What you want to do is grab at least an 11-inch extension, or maybe every extension in your toolbox to get to this much, and a deep well socket, and we're going to slide it in from the side here, and we're with the tailgate closed and with those bolts loose, we know that Delrin V is in the exact spot that we want it to be. So now all we have to do is just tighten it with the tailgate closed. So with these extensions and with a wrench on the other side kind of worked up in there, you can get it nice and tight. You can do both bolts if you like in this orientation, and then that makes sure that that is exactly the spot that you want it to be in. Couple nicks in Corey's paint. I won't tell him if you won't tell him. I mean, did come from the bottom of the ocean, or like I said, a junkyard or swamp. So we have this option for our tire carriers, and that's this 2-inch LED third brake light. Now what happens is when you remove your factory tire carrier, you lose that kind of periscopy third brake light. But what you can do is get this 2-inch kit from us, and it's super easy to install. You take this grommet and pop it right on the tire mount. There's a hole there for it. Then you take this LED, and there's a mark that says top, and you press that into the grommet. And then it's kind of a universal wiring here, but if you take the positive wire that used to go to your third brake light and attach that to the black, and the negative wire to the white, remember trailers are wired backwards just like houses, then this will act as your third brake light. Now if you have a factory JK wheel, like Corey has down here, this we'll call it tetanus wheel, you'll have a Jeep center cap right here. And what you need to do is take you know, this rod or whatever and just jab that out of there, and then you'll have this hole here that the third brake light will show up through. So yeah, now we're at the end. We installed this upper tire carrier, the Shield tire carrier for the TJs and the LJs, and all that's left is the payoff. We have to take this terrible, disgusting looking spare tire that Corey has here and mount it on this tire carrier. But lifting things, I don't really want to do it. So Caleb, this is Caleb, everyone. Here's the lug nuts. Put this on here and close the video, and have a great day. Bye guys.
And that's it. So if you have any questions, feel free to email us at info@jcroffroad.com or give us a call. Thanks.